Ya empiezas, pues ya puedes, Vicente.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Vicente Palacio from Fundación Alternativas, and this is the presentation today of the working paper, a new working paper that has just been released by the Fundación Alternativas. It's called ASEAN and the EU Strategic Opportunities for Indonesia and Spain. So today we'll be looking to the Southeast Asia affairs and European ones also. This working paper has been produced or is the result of the joint production of Fundación Alternativas experts with Indonesian experts. So this is new, this is good news that we are collaborating further, and we are starting a good, very, very good friendship. I would like to thank you, all the people who will be joining us today, the audience here in Europe and Southeast Asia, and especially thanks to Emilio de Miguel from Casa Asia in Madrid, to Javier Gil from Pontifical University, comillas, in Madrid, to Dayun Irma from FPCI in Jakarta, and also to Arillo Ilhama from the think tank INDEF, INDF in Jakarta as well. The conversation will be moderated by our contributor, Elisa Sakeska, she's now in Warsaw, and she's made a great contribution to this project. Let me just give you two thoughts on the context and the purpose of this working paper in the seminar. As you know, the eruption of the Trump 2.0 administration is creating disruption in the international order. It's creating disruption in the transatlantic relation. The tariff wars has begun. These are tariff wars, tremendous tariff wars, very critical tariff wars with China and Europe, basically. But it's also affecting many other countries, many other economies, Southeast Asian economies as well, Indonesian economy as well, in many ways. And now Europe, as you know, needs to find stable and predictable partners. We are in a moment that we are looking back to Southeast Asia in the search of a way of diversifying our alliances and finding stable partners for us. This is very important, and there is a window of opportunity in many fields, and this is why we did this working paper that we are presenting today. Many fields of collaboration in the digital, in connectivity, and defense and security, in maritime security, which is very important, and the management of natural catastrophes, for instance, climate change, or even in the cultural and the religious dialogue between civilizations, between cultures. Spain can play a pivotal role on this and foster cooperation between European Union and ASEAN and in many levels. We are entering, as Spaniards, a new phase, a new area of our foreign policy. We are looking forward, we are looking far for new partners in Southeast Asia and Eastern Asia as well. We have already important ties with China, with other countries in Southeast Asia, with Vietnam, with the Philippines, and Indonesia can play a pivotal role as well as a regional power, as a middle power in this EU-ASEAN relation. So we can build up an important partnership between Spain and Indonesia on this, not only because of the population of Indonesia, 278 million people, and has a huge potential strategic and economic power, And strategically, as we know, Indonesia is very, very important due to its geographical location and purpose. I think the Indonesia government and his president right now, Prabowo Subianto, he's playing a very important role on this, and he's showing very much leadership on this. Spain is very important partner in the EU and can play, as I said, a very important role on this. Only 2 days ago, a new foreign policy strategy was released by the Spanish government, and it devotes one chapter and a specific mention to ASEAN and Indonesia, and this is very important. Also, and this is one of the mottos of this working paper produced by Javier Gil and Ayudarma, is that deepening into this relation between the European Union and ASEAN is a way of delivering strategic autonomy, the so-called EU strategic autonomy. However, member states cannot or should not go alone, or this should not divide or separate the member states' interests and perspectives. We have now this challenge. The challenge is now to coordinate better our policies towards ASEAN and Indonesia between the EU member states. Just take the recent trip or the recent tour of President Macron across the region, and all the agreements that were signed in defense, in green hydrogen, in critical raw materials. I think that Spain should, together with other member states interested in the region, in the area, in ASEAN and Indonesia, to make this a truly European policy, not a member states or separated policy. And finally, this, as this paper suggests, it is very important that we, as Europeans, learned much about the capacity of Indonesia to navigate the US-China confrontation, that we try to avoid a new tech Cold War that would be very, very negative for everyone. And we have to learn about how diversify with superpowers and regional powers. So we are entering a new dynamics that will be very positive for the two regions, European Union and ASEAN. In this search of alliances, but smart alliances. There should be smart alliances for everyone. So thank you very much again for joining us to all. I would like just now to introduce and give the floor to Mr. Ambassador of Indonesia in Madrid, Mr. Muhammad Najib, and for his kind support of this project. And he will address a keynote speech very briefly. Thank you very much, Ambassador. We are very grateful that you are with us today, this morning, and the floor is yours. Thank you. Hello. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning for colleagues in Madrid, and good afternoon for colleagues in Jakarta. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you, especially to Mr. Vicente Palacio from Fundación Alternativas, Mr. Ambassador Emilio from Casa Asia Madrid, Professor Javier Gil Perez from the University of Comillas, Asia specialist in Spain, who lived in Jakarta and Asia few years ago. Also to Ms. Dayu Nirma Amurwanti from FPCI Senior Fellow, Ms. Esa Magfira Rahbini, expert on digital economy from INDEF. It is indeed a privilege for me to deliver this brief introduction remark on ASEAN-EU relations, strategic opportunities for Indonesia and Spain. Let me begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to Vicente Palacio and Fundación Alternativas for making this important discussion possible. Today's discussion is timely with the new Spain's External Action Strategy 2025-2028. A foreign policy with its own identity, endorsed yesterday by the government of Spain, which among others underlines Indonesia as a priority partner for Spain. We will be working even closer with Spain to intensify political and economical dialogue, including promote socio cultural, and people-to-people contact. As reflected in the new foreign policy strategy, Spain will continue to be an active partner in ASEAN-EU relations. I, therefore, encourage the timely completion of the ratification of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia by Spain. Distinguished colleagues, to help stimulate the discussion, allow me to highlight some key elements on our bilateral relation. Indonesia and Spain diplomatic relation was established in 1958. After more than a half century, we established bilateral consultation, a key platform for political dialogue, addressing a wide range of issues of common interest. During the recent years, we have intensified ministerial dialogue on the margin of international events, engaging on both inter-regional and global matters. In the area of defense cooperation, we established a joint commission meeting in 2023, which plays a critical role not only as forum for advancing bilateral defense cooperation, but also in addressing broader geopolitical perspectives. Our total bilateral trade has been exceeding $3 billion annually over the past 3 years. This figure, however, does not yet reflect the full potential of our economic partnership. We must work more closely with relevant stakeholders to unlock new opportunities and further deepen our commercial engagement. As major global tourist destination, the number of tourists visiting both countries is increasing. Last year, we welcomed almost 150,000 tourists from Spain, while Indonesians visited Spain grew considerably, of more than 93,000 tourists. I believe there remains significant potential for cooperation in various other promising sectors, which we need to explore more. I trust that today's discussion is both timely and relevant in the current context of an uncertain geopolitical landscape, where cooperation and competition increasingly go hand in hand. I truly hope that the recommendation arising from this dialogue will contribute meaningfully to further strengthening the bilateral relationship between Indonesia and Spain. Please accept my apologies for having to leave the discussion earlier due to other pressing commitments. I trust that Vicente will kindly keep me informed on the final recommendation of today's discussion. Thank you very much. Have a lively and productive debate. Gracias, muchísimas gracias.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ambassador. So this is the floor for our moderator, Elisa Sakieska from Warsaw. Thank you very much, Elisa. Good morning.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Muhammad Najib and Vicente Palacio, for your introduction to the topic of ASEAN EU report. So now we are moving on to the debate, which will address the main themes of the report concerning, among others, geopolitics, digitalization, technology, and defense. My name is Elisa Zaleska. I'm a master in geopolitics and strategic studies student. I'm collaborating also with Fundación Alternativas in this project. I'm moderating today's discussion. Firstly, I would like to also welcome all listeners who are with us today via YouTube, where a chat is open already. So you can ask questions for our speakers, which they will the discussion. So now let me introduce them. Firstly, we have Javier Gil Perez, who is a co-author of the report. He's a professor of international relations at Comillas Pontifical University, specializing in Asian regional studies and international security. Besides, he also conducted research at the top institutions, including in Singapore, Indonesia, and the London School of Economics. Hello, Javier.
Hi, Elisa.
Hello, Javier. The next speaker is Dayonirma Amurwanti, second author of the report, who is a lecturer and expert in economic policy, governance report, and international risk analysis. She also brings over a decade of field experience from the World Bank and the US Department of Justice anti-corruption programs in Indonesia. Hello, Dayu.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning.
We have with us also Emilio de Miguel Calavia, a senior Spanish diplomat with over 30 years of experience. He has served as Spain's ambassador to Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar, and is currently director of Casa Asia in Madrid with deep expertise in Southeast Asian affairs. Hello, Emilio. Thank you for being here. And lastly, I would like to introduce our special guest, Dr. Aryo Iramna, a researcher at the Indonesian think tank INDEF. His research mainly focuses on development economics of the Southeast Asian countries. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you, Elisa.
So now it's time to start our debate. Emilio, let's start with you. In a paper, there is a proposal for Spain and Indonesia to become a bridge between the EU and ASEAN. What conditions must be met for this to be viable from not just symbolic, but operational perspective?
Well, I think we should have a deeper dialogue on geopolitical. I think that we are missing with some countries a dialogue on geopolitics, especially now that we can see European Union is much more focused especially in Eastern Europe. I think that Spain on its side can help European Union to redirect its effort. We are devoting a lot of effort first to the war in Ukraine, also to the changing paradigm introduced by the second mandate of President Trump. So I would say somebody should be keeping in mind, should be reminding the partners the importance of the Indo-Pacific for all of us. On the side of Indonesia, I think ASEAN is passing through a similar moment. You have the conflict in Myanmar, you have the presence of China, especially economically, but increasingly also politically. I think that we should Spain on its side and Indonesia in its side to try to reorient our respective associations. We have a lot in common. Some of the threats, for instance, commercial wars, we share this threat. We are, both of us, associations of middle powers interested in keeping an order based in rules. Besides that, Indonesia wants to become a global actor, to be more influent in the global arena, and I think a European Union with the strategic autonomy is in the same way. We have understood that we must work further and more intensely out of our own region. And for me, this part of EU becoming a real global actor, an independent global actor, it's very important that we have a presence in Asia and the Pacific, and for that, Indonesia, I think it's the proper partner.
Thank you so much, Emilio. Now I have a question for Dayu. Do you think the differences at the level of political integration between the EU and ASEAN are a barrier or rather an opportunity for flexible formats of interregional cooperation?
Okay, apologies for the technical glitch. Okay, so I think the differences in the structure and the level of economic and political integration should not pose as barriers for cooperation. Instead, those are actually wonderful catalysts for both regions to work together. With EU becoming a regional association or a regional grouping that has better a more comprehensive political and economic integration, of course, it works in very much structured fashion. While in ASEAN, because it's very much consensus based, it also allows at the same time diversity of views, diversity of interests across its members. So in a way, then EU and EU member states are able to work both with ASEAN as a regional grouping, working in topics where they find common interests, where there is a commonalities in values, and when there is a shared vision. But at the same time, EU and EU member states are able to work with and foster stronger cooperation with individual member states, depending on topics that they think are of interest. It may be slower to work with ASEAN because of the consensus-based and non-interference policy, but at the same time, it also ensures that when the two regional associations are working together, then there are shared and common values that become the foundations of that cooperation.
Thank you so much, Dayu, and please stay with us because right now I have a second question for you.
Okay.
The report concludes that ASEAN is characterized by open regionalism. How can this openness be reconciled in practice with increasing geopolitical pressure from the United States and China?
Well, the concept of open regionalism basically allows ASEAN to be stronger regionally and to maintain that regional stability, while at the same time it is open to other regional partners and basically promote multilateral liberalism and multilateral order, and in that sense. So with the changing geopolitics, with the ongoing tension between the US and China, of course, ASEAN does not really pick sides, in the sense that if there's a question today, would ASEAN rather be siding with US or China? The answer is none. It is working with both. It is navigating its relations with both, as a regional grouping and individually as ASEAN member states. At the same time, in the recent summit, I think the ASEAN leaders have indicated that there is a growing concern that this unilateral move by United States have caused not only fragmentation in global trade, but it caused uncertainties and disruptions in supply chains. And therefore, collectively, in unison, there was a statement voicing that concern. But at the same time, it is negotiating both. The ASEAN member states are negotiating bilaterally with the United States with regards to this tariff. And China, as you have probably heard and read, is also approaching individual member states to navigate this and basically to offer support in that sense. And ASEAN as a regional grouping and as individual member states are trying to navigate this changing landscape very carefully without having to pick sides. So that's basically what open regionalism means in practice.
Thank you so much, Dario, for your answer. And now, Emilio, I have a second question for you, as we are in the topic of geopolitics. If and how can Spain strengthen its position vis-à-vis France and Germany in the ASEAN region without compromising EU foreign policy unity? And do you see member states' interests aligned regarding the ASEAN region? Emilio, your microphone, please.
I didn't hear properly the second part of the question. If you could repeat, please.
Yeah, sure. I can repeat the whole question. So, how can Spain strengthen its position vis-à-vis France and Germany in the ASEAN region without compromising EU foreign policy unity? And do you see member states' interests aligned regarding the ASEAN region?
Well, first, I don't see the foreign policy of Spain as a kind of competition with France and Germany. It's true they have more interests than us, and especially they devote much more resources to the region that we do. Spain, since the very beginning, has told that our frame of work was the EU strategy for the Indo-Pacific. So now, as you know, we have a new strategy of foreign action. We are already preparing a strategy for Asia and the Pacific. In our strategies, the EU is a fundamental component. What we want, and I think we see our presence in the Indo-Pacific as a way also to promote the European presence. Our objectives, I think, in the framework of these strategies would be to increase our presence and the resources we devote. For instance, in the paper, it was written, and it's true, that Spain has not a defense attaché in Indonesia. Also, I could say another of our lacks is the fact that in our embassy in Malaysia, there are only ambassador and another diplomat. We should have a bigger embassy in Malaysia. And so we are working on that. We are giving a more strategic view of our actions in Southeast Asia. As it has been mentioned, we intend signing shortly the Treaty on Amity and Cooperation of ASEAN. concerning the second part of your question, one of the problems I have been following very closely the strategy of the European Union on the Indo-Pacific is the fact that the interests of the EU members are very diverse. The Indo-Pacific doesn't interest equally to all of us. And I think this is a problem when we have to work together. Let's say, for instance, the Baltic republics, even if one of those, Lithuania, has an ambassador for the Indo-Pacific and a specific strategy for the region, are obviously more concerned about Eastern Europe than about the Indo-Pacific. So this is not necessarily bad. You know, there is already a core group of countries with real interests in the region, and these countries, one of those is Spain, we can push for the implementation of the EU strategy, and we can give the direction in Asian Pacific. I think that one of the strengths of European Union is that different countries can introduce different views in different regional groupings and also multilaterally. And this is positive. I mean, very often we see the division of Europe, of the member states as a source of weakness, but it can become a source of strength, as I have mentioned, in the Indo-Pacific.
Okay, thank you so much, Emilio. Now let's move to the topics related to technological cooperation and digital transformation. Javier, I have a question for you here. The report raises the need for joint working groups on new technologies, including AI and cybersecurity. How do you assess the readiness of the EU and ASEAN to actually cooperate in these areas?
Well, first, just thank you for the invitation to to write this paper along with Dadu. Thank you, Elisa and Vicente. And now answering to your question, I think there are some aspects to highlight. First, regarding the strategic alignment, I think that there is a common ground. I think the European Union and ASEAN in both regional institutions, we value, we recognize the strategic importance of digital security, artificial intelligence, and other disrupting technologies that basically are basically transforming our reality and especially the international relations. So I think we agree on that. So there is a common ground, but there is I think there is a clear stark difference among the European Union and ASEAN, basically in our approach. In the European Union, our approach is we have to regulate artificial intelligence and all the aspects connected to digitalization and new technologies. And in ASEAN, was basically there are some countries that they have a specific digital governance, and other countries they have a very different digital governance model. So basically, there is a common ground, but at the same time, there are some differences among the states. Second, regarding the institutional and technical capabilities, this is very, in Europe, let's say, of course, there are some countries that are leading the transformation in artificial intelligence and in the new technologies, that's true. Spain, let's say, that is in the top, or in the I would say in the top, 3-4 countries, leading this revolution. But in ASEAN, I think there is a stark differences, in the countries. Of course, it appears Singapore, but basically with wonderful capabilities in artificial intelligence and interpersonal intelligence policies and on cyber capabilities, on cyber defense. For example, then other countries like Indonesia, for example, or Vietnam or Thailand, they are, they are, generating, growing capacities and capabilities in these sectors. Okay, so I think this is problematic if we want to start and to forge, important cooperation in these areas. So basically, to be realistic, I would say that probably we can start and we can, push, cooperation between the European Union and ASEAN in the areas of artificial intelligence and other. I think this is important, and other, technologies that are disrupting. But probably the more realistic is to basically to engage, countries of those regions to work together. In this case, Spain, for example, and Indonesia, because the paper is for these countries. But I think, at the national level, I think probably we could advance, faster. Regarding this cooperation between different countries, Spain, for example, and Indonesia, I think that it's quite important, for example, to start, working, for example, from research centers, think tanks, universities, because they are very flexible. They can organize different platforms, basically just to engage better, in this area. So basically, yes, I think we have a common ground. I think we have differences of capabilities. We have a different approach, but of course we have to work together because it's very important for both regions and in this case for both countries, Spain and Indonesia.
Okay, thank you so much, Javier, for your answer. And now I'd like to ask Aryo, what actions, both at the level of public policies and international cooperation, do you consider the most effective in bridging the digital divide?
Okay, thank you, Aliza. First of all, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me today. As I'm stepping in on a short notice for my director, who unfortunately couldn't be here, Asia, due to a family emergency. Related to the question, I think it's increasingly clear that bridging the digital divide must be seen as both a domestic and international priority. From a public policy standpoint, to me, there are three things come to my mind. First, inclusive digital education, ensuring that digital literacy isn't just available, but accessible across rural areas, lower income communities, and marginalized groups. Second, targeted infrastructure investment in unreserved areas, particularly remote or archipelagic parts of countries like Indonesia. And third, strong support for SMEs, enabling them to adopt and benefit from digital technologies in particular sustainable way. But remember, it's not just about handling out devices or building more towers. It's about confidence and capability. Giving people the means is one thing, but giving them the knowledge and trust in the system, in digital system that is happening currently is what truly empowers them. Now, looking at this from a broader lens of international cooperation, I think the EU has much more advanced regulatory framework, digital infrastructure, and institutional experience. To me, this presents a real opportunity for cross-learning, technical collaboration, investment, programs that promote regulatory harmony, cybersecurity frameworks, or digital governance can be a real game changer for ASEAN, especially for emerging players like Indonesia. And if I may add, civil society, NGO, and platform like this is in this very event today. I think Fundación Alternativas play a crucial role. They often have flexibility and responsiveness than more bureaucratic government-to-government process alike. Supporting and scaling these channels of dialogue between ASEAN and EU, I think, particularly with the active support of governments, is a smart and strategic move. I think that's for your question, Alisa.
Thank you so much, Aryo. And now I have second question for you, so please stay with us. This question is related to economic cooperation. What specific mechanism could be implemented to ensure better access for small and medium enterprises in ASEAN, especially in Indonesia, to European markets and investment, especially from Spain?
Okay. Initially, I think it's worth acknowledging that digital transformation isn't just a challenge, it's a massive opportunity. The ASEAN region has shown serious commitment, and this is reflected in long-standing digital cooperation agreements across member states since the early 2000s. Now, the EU-ASEAN strategic partnership already highlights digital development as a shared priority. In particular, the Asian Digital Master Plan 2025 outlined a vision for inclusive, sustainable, and secure digital economies. And the EU has committed to supporting through technical assistance, knowledge sharing, and investment. For SMEs, Indonesia and across ASEAN, the key mechanism is reducing any barriers. That's important, whether it's through harmonizing digital standards, providing bilingual legal compliance support, or even, I'm going to technical, offering digital trade platforms that are easier to navigate. From Spain's perspective, I think we're seeing real appetite for investment with social and developmental impact, and digital SMEs in ASEAN are promising space. What would help is establishing public-private partnership that connects Spain and Asia in ASEAN. Finally, let's not underestimate the power of, again, person-to-person, institution-to-institution exchange, training scheme, virtual acceleration, and SME matchmaking forums can I think help bridge the trust and information gaps, and also that's, I think, crucial in this situation.
Thank you so much, Aryo. And now we are close to ending this debate. I have the last question for Javier about the security topic. Javier, one thing before we start, because on the last question you were not fully clear during the answering, so please right now try to stay as close of the microphone as possible, okay? Just equality. Perfect. So Javier, the question for you. As a Spanish, in which areas of defense cooperation with Indonesia do you see the greatest potential for Spain?
Okay. Do you hear me now better?
Yes, just be as close as possible.
No, the problem was the volume of the computer. Well, now, let's go with it. Well, first, I think there are several sectors where Indonesia and Spain, might cooperate, in a deeper way. I exposed some of them on the working paper, but I want to highlight, 5, because I think they are critical for the future. First, in the area of defense, I think at least the production of submarines is very important. Spain has achieved, I think, something very, very important. It's basically the autonomous production of submarines. So here there are 2 possibilities regarding Indonesia. One, the transfer of technology. That would be, let's say, the second step of a long and deep cooperation. But the first step will be basically the sale of submarines from Spain to Indonesia. This is something possible because in the past, in the 80s, Spain and Indonesia, we had a wonderful defense cooperation in the industrial sector, with the building of the CN-235, aircraft. So I think this, experience of cooperation in the industrial sector, especially in the defense sector, is again. So the area of submarines, that I think is very clear. Transfer of submarines, of sales of submarines. Second, I think that Indonesia is a country with a wonderful deal experience combating terrorism. Is reflected in the paper that, a few months ago, the most important terrorist organization in Indonesia disbanded, announced, basically the end of the organization, that is Jamaica Media. So I think Indonesia and Spain can collaborate in the programs of de-radicalization, rehabilitation, and reintegration of former terrorists into the society. That is something that we have to explore more, because, for example, in Spain, we don't have, such advanced plans, and I think that is very important, especially taking into account when the number of prisoners, connected to Islamic fundamentalism in Spain is growing. So I think this area, it deserves some kind of cooperation. Of course, in the maritime domain, I think we can, collaborate more in the, for example, with military drills. I think that is very important. I think that we can cooperate, basically sharing, good practices, especially both countries, because we are maritime powers, we are surrounded by water. So I think we can cooperate a lot. How we manage, for example, over the straits here in Spain, or the straits in Indonesia, how we manage our maritime borders. We have, many maritime borders in Spain and Indonesia. So I think there are a lot of good practices that we can share. And there are 2 more areas that I think that we can explore. One is the space and the space industry. Spain is a leading country in the space industry in Europe. Spain, for example, is the only country in Europe that has a private company developing rockets, so that is very important. So I think a kind of cooperation in the space industry is something that we should explore. Indonesia wants to do, something, in the space. So I think some kind of joint collaboration, joint venture can be established in the private sector, or basically between the public sector and the private sector in both countries. So the space is very important. Spain is a country with an important industry again in the satellite sector. So I think, this collaboration in the space area could be quite beneficial. And finally, Spain has become a really important country in the production of drones. So here, some kind of transfer of technology could be, explored. And finally, because this is the best example, I think that we can collaborate more in the defense, in the security, arena and domain, collaborating more, among the universities and among the think tanks. And this seminar is a good proof of that. No? So basically, I think there are some areas that we can explore, that we can improve, and the best thing for both countries is that there is a great potential for both countries.
Okay, thank you so much, Javier, for your answer. Now we are coming to the end of our webinar. Many thanks to Muhammad Najib, Vicente Palacio, Dayo Nirma Amurvanti, Javier Gil Perez, Emilio Demguel Calavia, and Ario Iramna for imparting very valuable knowledge. And many thanks also to all the people who watch us by YouTube. We kindly encourage you to download the report on the Fundación Alternativas webpage. You can find already the link in the chat, both for the Spanish and English version. Thank you, and don't forget to follow Fundación Alternativas to keep up to date with the next events. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Vicente, ¿qué tal estás?